Wine has been firmly established at the heart of civilization since ancient times. The first evidence of domesticated agriculture reveals the vine among the crops cultivated. From the cradle of viticulture, Armenia, Georgia, Greece, and into other parts of Europe, the vine burgeoned as a crop and thrived as a dietary, social, economic, and cultural necessity.
The ancient world. 7000 BC, first evidence of intentionally cultivated grapes in Georgia. 5000 BC, earliest evidence of stored wine in the Zagros Mountains of western Iran. 3150 BC, wine jars buried in the early Egyptian king Scorpion I, jars containing traces of wine. 2750 BC, wine mentioned in texts written on clay tablets in the city of Ur, Mesopotamia. 1750 BC, Code of Babylonian King Hammurabi set laws regulating the retail trade of wine. 1600 BC, evidence of wine press at Palikastro on Crete. Mycenaean rulers of Crete introduced viticulture to mainland Greece. 1500 BC, first hollow glass drinking vessels made in Egypt. These were later widely made and used by the Romans. 300 BC, Greece begins to dominate the Mediterranean wine industry, instigating its spread to Italy, southern France, and the Iberian Peninsula. 186 BC, cult of god Bacchus banned as too debauched for Rome. AD 1st century, Romans introduced viticulture to Bordeaux area. AD 65, Spaniard Colomea sets down principles of viticulture in his work De Re Rustica. AD 79, eruption of Mount Vesuvius destroys wine shipping port of Pompeii. AD 300, wine has become well established as part of Christian Eucharist. AD 350, vines now well established around Trier and Mosel Valley in Germany.
By the early Middle Ages, the production of wine had become so established within the Church that the future of Europe's vineyards was assured. From the late Middle Ages, wine became increasingly important. Viticultural techniques were honed, favorite grape varieties cultivated, and pressing techniques in the winery improved. By this time, wine had also benefited from a few years aging. With the increase in quality, transport and trade of wine in Europe boomed.
The Middle Ages, circa 500. Collapse of Rome disrupts patterns of trade and has adverse effect on wine production. The Church, however, keeps viticulture alive. 632. On death of Muhammad, wine ceases to be part of daily life in Arabia. 750. Emperor Charlemagne is credited with organizing and setting down viticultural law in northern France and Germany. 816. Charlemagne's son Louis is crowned at Rheims, securing the Carolingian Empire and establishing a royal connection for the local wines, namely Champagne. Circa 900. Caliph Osman orders destruction of 2/3 of the vineyards in Valencia, Spain. 1000. Leif Erikson reaches northern coast of Newfoundland, where the number of wild vines inspired him to call it Vinland or Wineland. Circa 1050. French landowners clear land to extend vineyards. Expansion also occurs in Germany and later Hungary. 1152. Marriage of Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine brings wine region of Bordeaux under the English crown for 300 years. 1200. Spain's vineyards make a full recovery as Muslim power ebbs. Circa 1300. Cistercian monks extend vineyards in Burgundy and the Rhineland. 1350. Britain is absorbing roughly half of Bordeaux's total export of wine. By 1390, this has risen to 80%. 1420, Portugal settles island of Madeira and begins wine cultivation for a new fortified wine. 1437, Vintners Company established in London to regulate the city's retail and wholesale trade. 1453, Bordeaux reverts back to French ownership. Sweeter wines from the Mediterranean and Spanish sack become fashionable. 1550s, wine decreed to be better for general health than water, often tainted.
The 1500s through the 1800s were a period of development and adventure in the history of wine. The Americas, South Africa, and Australia opened up for vine growing, while in Europe, skills were being perfected for making sweet, sparkling, and fortified wines. The discovery of stronger glass for bottles and subsequently cork to seal them revolutionized how wine was stored. The classic wines of Europe now could be aged to perfection.
The Golden Age. Circa 1540, vineyards planted in Chile. 1557, Argentinian vineyards are established. 1597, Don Lorenzo Garcia establishes a winery in Mexico by direction of Spanish King Philip II. Barras de la Fuente winery still operates today. 1630s, first modern wine bottles are created in Newcastle, England. 1655, first shipment of vines arrives in Cape Town, South Africa. 1660s, Sauternes area of Bordeaux begins producing sweet wines. 1679, English Parliament bans French wines. Portuguese wine exports to England skyrocket. 1680s, English merchants reach the upper Douro Valley of Portugal and discover the forerunner of modern port. 1769, monastic vineyards established in San Diego, California. 1788, Captain Arthur Phillip brings vines to New South Wales, Australia. 1820, viticulture reaches Northern California. 1821, Dom Perignon credited with the invention of champagne.
The 20th century has seen major technical advances in both winery and vineyard. The 1970s witnessed the discovery that the New World could compete with the classic European regions in producing top-quality wine. At the same time, bulk production forced a drop in quality, but the 1980s and 1990s brought technical advances. The new millennium heralded better quality and reliability than ever before.
20th century and the new millennium. 1914. World War I and subsequent depression has dampening effect on the wine industry. 1920. Prohibition in the US forbids the use of wine except for religious and medicinal purposes. Industry slowed to bounce back on repeal in 1933. 1935. First AOC legislation passed in France, controlling yields, origin, minimal alcohol, method of growing, grapes, and winemaking. 1940. World War II increased pressure on the wine industry. 1950s. Technological advance hits vineyards, tractors for tending vines, sprays for more effective disease control, and more sophisticated clonal selection. 1950s. Improvement in quality of tap water across Europe sees wine becoming even less of an everyday item. 1957. Max Schubert makes the first great Australian wine, Grange Hermitage. 1960s. Varietal revolution begins to bring accessibility to wine. Labeling wine with its grape variety blows away smokescreen. 1963. Italy perfects its own appellation system, DOC-DOCG, Korea's law. 1964. Big business wine begins in US with the birth of the Gallo brothers empire, making wine for the mass market. 1966. Napa Valley becomes the first American prestige appellation, with the founding of Robert Mondavi Winery. 1970s. Bag-in-box wine in Australia set to rival beer. Thus begins the advent of bulk-made Australian wine. 1976. Paris tasting establishes quality of New World wine when Californian wine beats a French one. 1981. Émile Peynaud revolutionizes winemaking with his book setting out the importance of temperature-controlled fermentation.